Alright, let's talk about Helldivers 2 in this video. If anyone doesn't know the game, in short, it is simply a PvE shooter game where you get to kill and defend from different types of factions like robots, bugs, and aliens, and try to spread democracy from one planet to another. The game has had so many up and downs since last year due to weapon nerfs that made them lose 90% of the player base, but managed to regain their footing by reverting everything simply by making the weapons fun and powerful, which resulted them winning 4 game awards. But despite that, it still has many flaws. The one I'm going to talk about, which is mainly the reason I made this video, is this. Let me introduce you to the Democracy Space Station, aka the DSS. It was one of the most hyped additions to the game, with almost 2 months of development where players get really excited as they get to see the building being built over time, and they thought the game will add something like a clan system. It's a place where people will get to hang out, basically like a Helldivers convention considering the size of it outside the window looking like a 5-star hotel in the space. Only to realize it was designed to exterminate everything on the planet, especially caused by that one particular ability of the ship, which is called the planetary bombardment. Heck, they even showed us a footage of the moon gets completely obliterated and just have it ready to operate. Surely we're not gonna end up in pieces like the moon, right? Right? To be honest, the concept is pretty interesting, but the execution was done poorly. This has a very wasted potential to be great, but then Arrowhead decided to play it safe by postponing this feature in the game before winning surprising a lot of game awards, considering its negative impact to the gameplay. But I have a suggestion to fix it, which I'm pretty confident that the players would really love this idea. But first things first, let's talk about why everybody hates it in the first place. The DSS Planetary Bombardment is simply an automatic stratagem of 380mm HE rocket barrage that rains down around players. At the time of its release, it became a huge problem to everyone because if this thing is right next to your planet you're trying to play, at first you were just vibing with your teams as you go and everything going smoothly, then meanwhile, the ship in the sky be like, Anyway, I just started blasting, because these babies doesn't discriminate. Boom! One direct hit to that poor dude, and then boom! That guy got sent flying! You see that guy over there having a great time? Boom! There goes this mutilated part for the bugs to snack on. DSS, DSS, whoa! DSS, DSS, DSS. Anyways, these things hardly hits the enemies. Sure, it can destroy objective buildings, but it's unlikely to land one accurately. Not to mention, it's so freaking loud. It just doesn't give the players any reassurance when this thing starts destroying everything. Then Arrowhead decided to postpone the DSS right before they announced their game awards, and released a major update followed by the new enemy type. It was a wise decision actually, otherwise it would have scared and deterred a lot of new and returning players from that annoying ship. Then recently, they decided to put the DSS back a month later. It now provides a normal 380 barrage as an extra, which only affects the area like a normal throne stratagem, which was underwhelming and felt pretty wasted. So I have a solution for this planetary bombardment barrage issue in Helldivers 2. So the players hates getting bombed from random missiles, so instead, program them and have them turn into a homing projectile that targets enemies within the player's radar perimeter, which is exactly like those homing missiles from Despicable Me. If one drops out of the sky, it immediately looks for a target and damages anything in the area. Of course, it's programmed to only hit the enemies far enough for the player to get a safe distance from the explosion, unlike the other bombardment. This has an equivalent damage to a spear, which apparently around 4000 damage, and explosion radius enough to affect an entire patrol. This can also stagger even the biggest of enemies. To make it even more fun to watch, the rockets have like 25% chance of carrying a common sized enemy to up to a Hulk or behemoth size. This sends them high up in the air and explodes into little bits of pieces. Probably programmed them for carrying its target, and it's either programmed to simply crash into anything and explodes, or if it finds an enemy head, the missile is gonna take them along and explodes upon impact. So, what do you think? With this, I feel like we can have the similar feeling from the Eagle Storm where jets are flying by and starts gunning on groups of enemies. Imagine what a huge army coming right at you. A rocket came by, whooshing above your head and your sides, and start annihilating enemies left and right. Plus, with some of the enemies exploding in the air, it would feel like watching a fireworks show. Now, as for the other features like the Eagle Storm or the Hellpod ones, I guess they're alright. And also, now stronger enemies are coming in the future updates. As a max level player, I've consistently played on the highest difficulty, and I've noticed that the number of enemies are getting even more relentless. I think the developers are just experimenting with a balance to determine the optimal level of game difficulty. Having said that, even with this uncertain balancing, what would be the best addition to the game to make things even more fun when you're surrounded by enemies, especially when they just keep coming? Behold, Helldivers Adrenaline, a booster that gives a player a really powerful buff which fully activates if only one player left standing during an encounter event with all their reinforcements are gone or on cooldown, with an effect of 50% manual reload speed, and when you stow your weapons, it automatically reloads to normal speed. It has infinite stims and ammo. It gives stims a 4 seconds buff of 30% damage resist, a speed boost, does not stack with the syringe booster, and prevents getting one-shotted from any type of damage, which means you need to at least take 2 hits from any lethal damage. The player must stim again to avoid getting one-shotted. It has unflinched like that one armor, and no panic falling animation when diving. Melee damage of 200% with stun effect up to units like a Behemoth or Hulk, which lasts for 2 seconds. And stratagem cooldown reduced by 70%. With extra features, when a player goes to the breach or surrounded with enemies while on this effect, an exclusive epic music plays. And exclusive voice lines of the character too. Let me give you a rough example of what it looks like.
I can't take it anymore! Get some, baby! Get some! Die, die, my darling! Die, die, die! Woo! Yeah!
So you pretty much get the idea. And anyway, the effect lasts as long as the encounter events with extra 60 seconds afterwards. The reason for that is even after the encounter event, it's still packed with enemies and sometimes it takes a while to clean them all up. That if they take long enough, the next encounter event begins. The number of enemies may not be as intense in lower difficulties, but in max level, it just never ends. So this buff will make it even. Now add this in the DSS weaponries for automatic buff. It's called John Helldivers Secret Training, paid with requisition slips, same as the Hellpod optimization. The reason why we need this is again, there are more enemy varieties coming and uncertain balancing by the Arrowhead Studios is always inevitable. This kind of compensate that. I think just in case if any of the players have 2 or more friendly kills, whether they are accidentals or not, from their firearms or stratagems, mines and sentries doesn't count, they won't get access to this buff throughout the entirety of the game, as this could prevent them from taking advantage of the booster and griefing within the team. I know this might be overpowered, but I just want to feel like there's still some hope in a situation where the player would get trampled on by the enemies, and all of a sudden, the plot armor kicks in. Plus, it's only just one person in the brink of losing the game would be able to get access to this buff. And there's really no telling who would get it and when everyone is under pressure and it's up to one person that gets it and survive throughout. You think this would be enough to handle them and become a one-man army? Maybe, because all my 500 hours playing this game, there's a lot of enemies that attacks really fast, could ragdoll you or disintegrate you from their projectiles, not to mention the enemies coming from the blind spots, and different skill levels from the players. So even with this overpowered buff, the chances of the player surviving the game during the situation is pretty much depends on the last standing player can handle that much pressure when all enemies are coming at them on every direction. The booster is only just a little power up to give the player an extra chance to challenge themselves. As for the dead players, they will be spectating from the back and will be in awe as they watch this player going in the zone as if you're watching a freaking movie, which would be awesome to see. A little bit of issue where a player can only try one day of the DSS weaponries, because not everyone have a time to try them out, especially if they only last for one day. With a cooldown of 6 days, it's just way over the top. It's giving me PTSD from those mobile games era. 16 days. What the fuck? So why not try give every player who has contributed their samples a 2-time access from the current active DSS abilities. They can use this anytime they want, and only affects that one player. Once they use all of it for doing 2 missions, they will have to wait until they send out samples and become active again. Just make sure the usage doesn't count if the player who activated their DSS got kicked out, crashed, or failed in the mission. It would fully be used if the player got extracted or complete the mission. The current DSS right now works just fine where players can access to certain abilities for 1 day. Just add 2 charges where they can use it anytime on any planet. This way, the players who gave tons of samples only to miss it on the day it was active have a chance of using it, or at least see them in action would be nice. Little fix: make the camera less shaky when riding bigger enemies and can't be damaged unless it makes sense. Some players, like me, tends to get over the top of an enemy by using a rocket pack or using a high ground to jump over them, but positioning yourself on the top of their head is programmed to get yourself killed. Come on, Arrowhead, fix this. Cause riding those big guys and blasting them left and right while you're going on a zone makes you look like a total badass. I hope they will allow us to climb over the top of them. That'll trigger the climbing animation at their back. You always wanted a realistic and immersive experience, don't you? Here, take it or leave it, Arrowhead. That's it for this video. Keep in mind, I don't expect the game to take this idea seriously. I just find it really fun to share my thoughts and try to fantasize this in my head. This channel isn't focused on Helldivers 2. You can consider this channel where I discuss a game I really like and come up with a really fun and cool idea that can be enjoyed by everyone, and try to show a rough demonstration in the best of my ability. So, if you don't mind a little creativity in this platform, feel free to follow me. That's it for this video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.